Okay, we are joined by the Speaker of the City of Johannesburg as well as the Chief Whip. I did see the MEC for Human Settlements, but let's just get perspective from the Speaker and the Chief Whip. Thank you for joining us. This is, of course, a huge tragedy, 64 dead and counting. Is this not an indictment on government, given the hijacked building crisis that we have been seeing?
Thank you very much, Heidi. Indeed, a tragedy, and as the City of Johannesburg, we are really, really saddened. We send our condolences to the family and to the affected community. Look, this thing is a two-edged sword. It's not an indictment only to government. I think we have to understand it in the context of what it is. Number one, these hijacked buildings, we've known them, we've been dealing with it, but the justice system fails us when it comes to identifying these hijackers themselves and then prosecuting, etc. Somehow they are let off their hook along the justice system. Number two, it has to do with lawlessness, also on the part of citizens. We have embarked on civic education to really teach the citizens, understand that things like this, they result in tragedy. You know, lawlessness, they don't want to abide to the bylaws of the city. You ask them to move, they refuse. And you know, we've got also laws as a country that we need to change. That says, it's the same that happens in the informal settlement. If somebody chooses to dwell somewhere for a period of time, you can't evict them unless you give them alternative accommodation, etc. And it becomes a burden of government on how do we deal with the citizens that have just lawlessly placed themselves where they want to be. It's the same as informal settlements that place themselves by the flood lines, knowing very well that it's a dangerous spot. When floods come, there will be tragedies that happen. We are trying very hard to instill that education, to say in this world-class African city, we cannot have it without world-class African citizens who understand and work with government and really collaborate even with law enforcers when they ask them to move, when they ask them to do this, identify the hijackers, this is unsafe. You would have seen MMC Kunene tried to deal with the hijacked buildings. We got a lot of backlash as a City of Joburg from NGOs that purport it's human rights. The human rights of a certain sector of people cannot override and supersede the human right of everybody else as a society, and also the city's right to do its job and to make sure that everybody is safe and to make sure that buildings like this, it doesn't end up in a tragedy, you know, that we have seen today. So it's a combination of factors, from the government, from the justice system, from lawlessness of the citizen, just the general ill discipline of our community and our members. It's a problem.
I would like to maybe get some perspective from the Chief Whip as well. You know, the tragedy in all of this, and what the Speaker has indicated is that, you know, this world-class city, there's nothing world-class about this. There are just so many issues in the city, and it's yet another tragedy. We always wait for tragedy to hit the city before there's some sort of action taken.
No, Heidi, maybe let me start by sending my condolences. Indeed, this is a very a serious tragedy for South Africa and Johannesburg in particular. The issue of hijacked buildings is a serious one, Heidi. And walking down here, you can still see that there's still quite a lot of other buildings that are hazardous. That must be intensified to make sure that this is kept before it happens. Indeed, we are saddened as the city, and we are hoping that this will be, in actual fact, taken care of as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you both so much for your time. I appreciate it. I'm wondering if I could maybe get the MEC for health. I'm not sure. I'm good, thank you. I just want to ask if the MEC for health, we're live on eNCA. Thank you so much for your time, MEC. I'm not sure if you've already gone to Helen Joseph Hospital, but maybe if you could just tell us what you have seen and the tragedy in all of this.
In fact, I'm just waiting for Premier to come in. I'm going to Helen Joseph, but I spoke to the CEO, because including the CEO with South Rand Hospitals, both of them are already there. We're waiting for anybody that is going to go to Helen Joseph and South Rand Hospital. So at least things are in place. I am with the CEO from the forensic pathology which is the FPS in the province. So all the bodies, we're going to take them to Diepkloof, and then we're going to activate our team of doctors that must start working on the bodies, because we will need to make sure that we don't waste our time and wait. And those that we are not aware where they come from, we will definitely identify them through their fingerprints, so that we can get who is this person, where the person comes from. But I think everything is under control. We do have space in our hospitals. I've activated some wards that must just cater for these patients that will be coming from here.
So you mentioned a critical point around the fact that these bodies are going to be moved to Diepkloof. There's concern that these bodies have been lying here since just after 2 this morning. Do you have capacity to handle all of this and to handle these bodies?
CEO is here next to me. We have the capacity. That's why he has been here since morning. But we need all the proper processes to be done, because immediately when we move them to Diepkloof, they must be busy with them, because we don't want to pile them at Diepkloof and not assist them. So the space have been organized at Diepkloof. But even at Hillbrow, we do have some space. In all our hospitals, we have some space for mortuaries, anybody that happens, so that the families can find them decent. But the issue of identification is critical for us, because not everybody will know who's there now. So which means after my move to Helen Joseph, checking those that are not well and Southern Hospital, we will definitely go to Diepkloof, because CEO will have to follow the vans to Diepkloof and other mortuaries that will be having.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Let me see. Okay, one more question.
Those who are injured, who are getting medical attention in this scene.
As we speak at Helen Joseph, CEO Petu is busy with them. And CEO Gada at Southern, they are busy with them. So we've allocated them already. They are busy with those that are injured.
Are there serious injuries?
There are serious injuries. There are serious injuries. I think he can confirm to you, my team from EMS are here. They've been here since morning. They've picked up a lot of people, but they're still saying inside there are people that are inside the building. So that's why even the number, we can't confirm that this is the number.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks, MEC. We appreciate it. That is the MEC for Health in Gauteng, and the fact that the MEC is indicating that there is, of course, capacity to handle all of this. We're speaking about 64 bodies that need to be handled and need to, of course, be identified. Just bear with me, Dumela. I want to double check my phone to see if there has been any update in terms of the death toll. So far, it doesn't seem as though there is any indication. It still seems to be at 64, but it's obviously going to be imperative to get that actual official confirmation from EMS from the EMS spokesperson. Sorry, I'm just trying to understand why police are reacting this way. They seem to be... I have no idea what that was all about, but sorry, Atumel, I'm just trying to understand. It seems as though the police are trying to move people out of this area, but it's being done in a violent way, so I'm not understanding why that is happening. But anyway, so we do know that the hospitals have capacity to handle this. We do understand that the hospitals, also the mortuaries rather, are also in the position to handle this as well. There is a lot going on. I'm pretty sure that my colleague Bafedile Moerane is around here to try and also make sure that she doesn't miss anything in terms of official press briefings that are set to take place. But we've seen Floyd Brink here, we've seen the MEC for Human Settlements, Lebohang Maile. So we do know that the Premier is also on his way. The Mayor was supposed to be here at 9:30. I do not see him. But we've also been restricted a lot. So every time we try and move over to see what's going on, we've been told to move back because it is still an active scene, Tumelo.
Absolutely. I just want to ask you, and I'm not sure if this was ascertained, Heidi, in terms of especially those young children at this point, because I can imagine the chaos, not knowing where their parents are, what's the status of their parents, whether they are alive, whether they're in hospital, whether unfortunately they have passed on. Is there any commitment so far or any indication from government officials what they're going to do with those young children, where they're going to move the rest of the surviving tenants out in that building? Are they going to leave them on the street? Is there an indication as to what exactly is expected right now?
So that is a critical question, Tumelo, because we did ask emergency services in terms of people were evacuated, so the people that survived, how many of them have been moved to shelters or whatever it might be. I mean, you have people standing here on the pavement with no shoes. Some children are still in nappies. So that obviously needs to be attended to, but that is definitely in the realms of the city. So the mayor needs to attend to this, but also the premier as well as human settlements. So they need to find a way and find a place for people to be located, because there is absolutely no chance that anybody can go back into that building at this particular point. I don't think anytime soon, especially because we've also been told that the building might not be structurally sound, and there's still smoke coming out of the building. So at this point, that is a no-go area, but obviously people need to be accommodated. And importantly, we've also been told by the MMC for Public Safety that it doesn't matter where people come from, which I think is important, because we have been told that there are a lot of foreign nationals that have been staying in this building. It doesn't matter where you come from, you will be attended to and looked after. Also around the identification process, that's going to be a difficult one, especially because you might have people that might not be documented, as we've been told by the MMC for public safety. So it's going to be critical, because we are still seeing a lot of people roaming around, a lot of people unsettled, completely devastated and confused, especially those children. And you know, you mentioned what I had briefly expressed to our colleague Gareth earlier on. The image of that boy will probably stay with me forever, because he literally sat there with no shoes. He looked so devastated. You could see that he knew he was absolutely not going to be able to get anywhere or have anything, because he's lost everything, including his mother and father. So it's going to be critical for all resources to be pulled. I did spot Gift of the Givers here, so it does seem as though NGOs are also coming through to provide that necessary support.
Absolutely. And we also spoke to Dr. Imtiaz Suleiman a bit earlier on, Heidi, speaking to Gareth Edwards, saying they will be providing food and just, energy-enriched foods to make sure they support the teams on the ground right now, doing the best that they can to recover those bodies. I did see also members of the SAPS behind you as we're talking, colleague, and it reminded me of what Robert Moerane was saying, that at this point they're on the third floor. This is where they're trying to clear floor per floor, making sure that before they move to the next floor, the previous floor is cleared before they hand over to the SAPS then to conduct their work. Since that conversation, any update as to if they've reached the fourth level, or perhaps as it stands still looking like they might still be working on the third floor, because that smoke on the top left of our screen, Heidi, still coming out of that building?
Yes, so let's give you those visuals. We have been told that they were on the third floor, so I'm not sure if they have now started moving onto the fourth and the fifth floor. But you are seeing officials coming through. We have seen the MMC for Finance, Dr. Moerane, also just arriving. But back to that critical point of whether or not they have started moving up to the other floors, I'm not sure at this particular point. I do see Robert Moloti. He's very busy. He's obviously very preoccupied. We have seen pathologists now starting to arrive on scene. We're possibly going to start seeing the removal of bodies, as we have been told that 64 of these bodies are basically lying just on the other side of this of where we are standing. And emergency services have actually blocked off this area because they do not want the media to see that, understandably so, because it's a very sensitive matter. You do not want to be insensitive to what's actually going on here. But I do see firefighters continuing to move in. You're also seeing firefighters actually just trying to catch a breath. They've been at it just after 1:30 this morning. So it's been a very, very long morning for them. And, the tragedy, Tumelo, is that I'm worried that as they start moving onto the fourth and fifth floor, the difficulty is that we've been told by the MMC is that people were actually trying to get out of the building, but because of the structural issues of this building and some security gates of some sort, it seems as though they were unable to actually move out. So people were trying to get out as quickly as possible, but there seems to be some security gate that was stopping them, and that seems to have possibly caused the entrapment of people and them being unable to move. But firefighters are still working. It still remains an active scene.
All right.
Tumelo.
All right, Heidi Giokos, we'll definitely be coming back to you as soon as there are any other developments. But as it stands, the number still standing at 64 fatalities, 43 injuries amongst the 64 dead now, 7 being children. Robert Moerane is saying the youngest child could be between the ages of 1 and 2. And as you can see there, of course, the building still, that smoke coming out and, you know, emergency services working floor by floor. The previous time when we spoke to Robert Moerane, they were on the 3rd floor and were trying to ascertain as to whether they've reached the 4th floor, but they're saying it's quite important to clear each floor before moving to the next. And once they've reached and are finished clearing and recovering from the 5th floor, they will then hand over the scene to the SAPS to conduct their work. So we'll definitely be hearing from my colleagues, Heidi Giokos, as well as Bafedile Moerane, because we do expect the MEC of Human Settlements, that's Lebogang Maile. I understand he's arrived, as well as Dada Morero, out in that particular road, Connor Albert and Delvis Road in Marshall Town. But also the mayor, who was expected at 9:30 this morning, Kabelo Gwamanda, was still expecting to see his arrival on the scene and hopefully have a conversation with them as to what exactly are the next steps in terms of assisting in this situation.